My name's Manjeet Kaur.
And my name's Gurnaam Singh. Welcome to the One Show. Waheguru ji ka Khalsa, Waheguru ji ki Fateh. Very warm welcome. Bahut niga swag, the One Show live Punjab broadcasting channel from West Midlands, West Bromwich in the England Midlands, broadcasting across the world. Facebook te live, YouTube te bhi live on the web, and obviously Sky 775. एक नवी चैनल आ और नवी चैनल दे विच एक वधिया चीज़ भी ये नवी सोच भी लिया रहे हैं मंजीत और नवे नवे विषय और असी भी नवे नवे आए हैं सानू हाँ तीजा चौथा हफ्ता हैगा
जी जी
तो बड़ा प्यार मिलता
बिल्कुल जी बिल्कुल
हाँ हौसला दे रहे भी तुसी जिथे औखे सबजैक्ट्स भी आप एड्रैस करते वन शो के उपर तो असी उसारू प्रोग्रैसिव गल्लां भी असी इत्थे करनियां क्योंकि सिख दुनिया दे विच खिल रहा इस टाइम ते मनजीत
जी जी
ते जिहड़ी सिखां दी स्टोरी आ जे आपां इतिहास वाल देखीए तां जड़वाणियां ने जिहड़े साडे ते इंपीरियलिस्ट आ उन्हां ने साडा इतिहास लिखिया उन्हां ने साडी साखी साडी स्टोरी दसी आ पहला मुगलों ने साडा सारा विरसा लिख दिता फिर अफगानियां ने भी लिखिया फिर थोड़ी देर लिए रणजीत सिंह के राज से सिखा ने भी अपना बिल्कुल बयान किया ऐसी कोई गल नहीं 40-50 साल राज सगा पर फिर भी ब्राह्मणों तो लिखा क्योंकि इन्हों का इन्फ्लुएंस बहुत ज़्यादा है तो इंडियन ने लिखा पर अज सिख दुनिया के जिथे खिल रहा तो अज मीडिया भी दुनिया खिलर गया कहा जाता भी मीडिया का युग है दिस इज़ द एज ऑफ मीडिया पहला भी मीडिया सी पर पहला मीडिया उन्होंने कोल सी जिन्हों को ज़्यादा रिसोर्सिस सके जे तुसी फिल्म मेकर की गल करते थोड़ा इमीडिएटली याद हॉलीवुड की मन चाहती सी गल बॉलीवुड तो जां BBC जां एडियां वड्डियां चैनल पर अज हरेक ही इंसान एक फिल्म मेकर बन गया क्योंकि हरेक के कोल आह कैमरा हैगा साडे कोल ते कई तो कैमरे च ही रहिंदे हो सारी जिंदगी दिन रात लगे अजकल नवी टिकटॉक आ गई आ जिहदे विच बहुत छोटियां होंदियां मूवी क्लिप्स वो कहंदे न्याणे कई ज़्यादा टाइम टिकटॉक ते लाउंदे आ सो इहदे चों एक बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट चीज़ आ if you are not represented in films in media then somebody else will represent you
they will do yeah
फिर होर किस ने तुहाडी स्टोरी दस देनी है
yeah exactly
ते अज असी सिक्स एंड फिल्म मेकिंग ये सबजैक्ट ही साडा ये हैगा तो जिद्दां मैं गल कीती आ जिहड़ी एक फिल्म बनानी आ ठीक है देयर आर डिफरेंट जॉनरस कोई कॉमेडी हुंदी आ कोई ट्रेजिडी हुंदी आ कोई डॉक्यूमेंटरी डॉक्यू ड्रामास भी हुंदे आ कोई हिस्टोरिकल हुंदियां कोई एक मन कल्पना हुंदियां मिथ्यासक भी हो सकदियां फिक्शन हो सकदा नॉन फिक्शन कई इन्हां दे जॉनरस हैगे आ पर ਜਦੋਂ ਆਪਾਂ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਦੀ ਸਟੋਰੀ ਦੱਸਣੀ ਆ ਫਿਰ ਸਾਡੇ ਲਈ ਕਾਫੀ ਮੁਸੀਬਤਾਂ ਪੈਂਦੀਆਂ ਇੱਕ ਤਾਂ ਇਹ ਪ੍ਰੋਬਲਮ ਹੈਗੀ ਆ ਵੀ ਜੇ ਸਾਡੀ ਦੂਜੇ ਸਟੋਰੀ ਦੱਸਦੇ ਆ ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਬਾਲੀਵੁੱਡ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਬੜੇ ਸਮੇਂ ਤੋਂ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਇੱਕ ਹਾਸੋਹੀਣ ਕੈਰੈਕਟਰ ਸਟੀਰੀਓਟਿਪੀਕਲ ਕੈਰੈਕਟਰ ਇੱਕ ਜੋਕਰ ਬਣਾ ਕੇ ਜਾਂ ਟਰੱਕ ਡਰਾਈਵਰ ਬਣਾ ਕੇ ਤਾਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਪੇਸ਼ ਕੀਤਾ ਹੁਣ ਥੋੜੀ ਜਿਹੀ ਬਹੁਤੀ ਚੇਂਜਸ ਆਈਆਂ ਥੋੜਾ ਜਿਹਾ ਚੇਂਜ ਹੋਇਆ ਤੇ ਦੂਜੇ ਪਾਸੇ ਇਹ ਆ ਵੀ ਜੇ ਕੋਈ ਫਿਲਮ ਬਣਾਵੇ ਸਿੱਖ ਧਰਮ ਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ सिख इतिहास के बारे हम सिख तो आपस विच भी साडी सहमति है नहीं साडे हिस्टोरिकल फैक्ट्स के उपर तो वो बेचारा फिल्म बना तो फिर बेशक 100 तो 90% भी लोग खुश होने भी इन्हें सही पोर्ट्रेल की
भंडिया जांदा
वो जे 10 जने विरोध करते तो उही कहते इन्हों बंद करो तो जिवें हुण पिछे जो गुरु नानक देव जी ते फिल्म बनी सी कार्टून जिन्होंने तुसीं कहा एनीमेशन सिक्का ने बनाई सी गुरु नानक शाह फकीर पहला श्रोमणी कमेटी ने पास भी करता सगा फिर दिखा भी गया तो रिव्यूज़ भी चंगियां हुई तो फिर यह क्या भी नहीं ये तुसी पोर्ट्रेल नहीं कर सकते कोई पैसे का चक्कर भी सी रौला सी हाँ जी तो चलो उदों श्रोमणी कमेटी ने कहा नहीं सो दे वर यू नो हॉपिंग वन साइड द अदर तो चलो उदों फिर ही दिखाई गई कई ने देखी भी पर इट्स बीन ऑन यूट्यूब ते भी तो मेरा ख्याल मिलियंस लोगों ने देखी आ
उन्होंने पसंद की
कई ने पसंद की कई ने देखने तो बगैर ही रिजेक्शन करता पर ये इशू आ गया सी भी how can we know that we are, correctly portraying Sikh tradition, Sikh culture, Sikh beliefs? ਹੋਰ ਵੀ ਇੱਕ ਵੱਡੀ ਪ੍ਰੋਬਲਮ ਹੈਗੀ ਹੈ ਫੰਡਿੰਗ। ਹੁਣ ਆ ਚੈਨਲਾਂ ਚੱਲਦੀਆਂ ਸਾਡੇ ਇੰਗਲੈਂਡ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ 3-4-5 ਚੈਨਲਾਂ ਹੋ ਗਈਆਂ, ਤਾਂ they're all begging for money, they're all asking for money because resources ਹੈ ਨਹੀਂ।
Exactly.
And ਵੈਸੇ ਤਾਂ most filmmakers most of the time are begging for money।
Yeah।
ਸੱਚ ਹੈਗਾ, ਥੋੜੇ ਜਿਹੇ ਹੈਗੇ ਸਟੀਵਨ ਸਪੀਲਬਰਗ ਵਾਲੇ ਵੱਡੇ ਡਾਇਰੈਕਟਰ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਕੋਲ ਵੱਡੇ ਫੰਡਸ ਆਉਂਦੇ ਆ, but most filmmakers, most people who work in the creative industries actually are always struggling for finance।
Definitely।
So ਜਿਹੜੇ ਫਿਲਮਾਂ ਬਣਾਉਂਦੇ ਆ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਇੱਕ ਸ਼ੌਂਕ ਹੁੰਦਾ, it's a labor of love। And so ਇਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਸਾਡੇ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਦੀ ਵੀ ਕਈ ਆਦਤ ਆ ਵੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਹੋਰ ਕੰਮਾਂ ਦੇ ਪੈਸੇ ਢੇਰ ਲਾ ਦਿੰਦੇ ਆ
ਜਿੱਥੇ ਇੰਨਾ ਜ਼ਰੂਰਤ ਵੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਨਾਲ।
ਪਰ ਜੇ ਕੋਈ ਫਿਲਮ
ਇਦਾਂ ਦੀ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਤੇ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਜ਼ਰੂਰਤ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਬੱਚਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਦੇ ਆਪਾਂ ਤਰੱਕੀ ਕਰਾ ਸਕਦੇ ਆ, ਨਵੇਂ ਆਈਡੀਆਜ਼ ਲਿਆ ਸਕਦੇ ਆ, we can take them further।
Well, it's a medium for education। Young people are watching these things। So ਜੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਬੱਚਿਆਂ ਦੇ ਭਵਿੱਖ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਨਵੈਸਟ ਕਰਨਾ, if you want to really, a good example is ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਪਿੱਛੇ ਸੀਗੇ ਭਾਈ ਤਾਰੂ ਸਿੰਘ ਦੀ ਮੂਵੀਜ਼ ਆਈ, ਐਨੀਮੇਸ਼ਨਸ ਆਈਆਂ ਸੀਗੀਆਂ, ਆ ਪਿੱਛੇ ਮਾਤਾ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਕੌਰ ਦਾ ਵੀ ਆਇਆ ਸੀਗਾ, ਔਰ ਉੱਤੇ ਵੀ ਕਾਫੀ ਪ੍ਰੋਟੈਸਟ ਵੀ ਸੀਗੇ, ਦੁਬਦਾ ਸੀਗੀ। So it seems like ਕਈ ਵਾਰੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਸਿੱਖ ਨਾ, we take one step forward and 2 steps back। ਤੇ ਇਹ ਵੀ ਬਿਲਕੁਲ ਠੀਕ ਹੈ ਵੀ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਫਿਲਮ ਮੇਕਰਸ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਜ਼ਿੰਮੇਵਾਰੀ ਵੀ ਬਣਦੀ ਆ, ਐਵੇਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਉਹਨੇ ਭਾਈ ਕੋਈ ਬਣਾਈ ਜਾਵੇ। ਇਹ
ਆਪਣੀਆਂ ਸਟੋਰੀਆਂ ਦਾ ਇਤਿਹਾਸ ਨਾ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਰਿਸਰਚ ਨਾ ਕੀਤੀ ਹੋਵੇ ਹਾਲ ਨਾਲ, ਤਾਂ ਇਹ ਵੀ ਗਲਤ ਹੈ। ਹਾਂਜੀ, ਅਸਲ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੈ ਨਾ ਅਸਲੀ ਚੰਗਾ ਫਿਲਮ ਮੇਕਰ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਉਹ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਰਿਸਰਚ ਜ਼ਰੂਰ ਕਰਦਾ, ਐਂਡ ਹੀ ਕੰਸਲਟ। ਸੋ ਇਹ ਵੀ ਹੈਗੀ ਆ, ਡਿਸਟ੍ਰੀਬਿਊਸ਼ਨ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਆ ਜਾਂਦੀ ਆ। ਸੋ ਇੱਕ ਹੋਰ ਬਹੁਤ ਵੱਡੀ ਇੱਕ ਪ੍ਰੋਬਲਮ ਆ, ਸਾਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਆਉਂਦੀ ਆ ਵਨ ਸ਼ੋ ਦੇ ਉੱਪਰ ਵੀ ਕਈ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਇਸ਼ੂਜ਼ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ, ਉਹ ਕਿਹਾ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਵੀ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਛੇੜੋ ਨਾ, ਤੁਸੀਂ ਪਰਦਾ ਪਾ ਲਓ, keep them under wraps। But really, if you're a filmmaker, particularly if you're doing documentaries, then you cannot put ਪਰਦਾ over real life। ਤੁਸੀਂ ਲਾਈਫ ਦੇ ਉੱਪਰ ਪਰਦਾ ਪਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਸਕਦੇ। ਜੇ ਜ਼ੁਲਮ ਪਰਿਵਾਰਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਤਾਂ ਉਹ ਬਿਆਨ ਕਰੋਗੇ, ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਿੱਦਾਂ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਇੱਕ ਪਾਸੇ ਰੱਖ ਸਕਦੇ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਨੂੰ। ਜੇ
ਸੈਕਸ਼ੂਅਲ ਅਬਿਊਜ਼ ਹੁੰਦਾ, ਜੇ ਡੋਮੈਸਟਿਕ ਵਾਇਲੈਂਸ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਆ, ਜਾਂ ਜੇ ਨਸਲਵਾਦ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਆ, ਜਾਂ ਕੰਮਾਂ ਕਾਰਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ, ਫੈਕਟਰੀਆਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ, ਸਵੈਟ ਸ਼ਾਪਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਐਕਸਪਲੋਇਟੇਸ਼ਨ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਆ, ਤਾਂ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਸਹੀ ਫਿਲਮ ਮੇਕਰ ਹੋਗਾ ਉਹ ਡਿਫਿਕਲਟ ਇਸ਼ੂਜ਼ ਨੂੰ
ਬਿਲਕੁਲ ਜੀ ਅੱਗੇ ਬਿਆਨ ਕਰੂਗਾ।
ਸੋ ਕਾਫੀ there's lots of different issues that we can explore today, and we've got 3 young filmmakers with us today to help us to learn about their own motivations but also explore some of the issues। I think we'll introduce our guests।
Yes, let's do it।
Okay, yeah, so welcome all 3 of you guys। I'm going to introduce you all and then we'll get on with the show। So on the far right is Upadesha Singh। He's actually originally from Stuttgart in Germany, born in Germany, and he's a podcaster. He's done radio shows as well on a range of topics, and he's passionate about storytelling and using film as a medium. So we're really good, and as I say, he's trying to engage with other people to collaborate on future projects, so that's great। Next to him is by Gurdev Singh। Gurdev Singh, he's an independent film production, he's got a company and he's interested in making films. Actually, he's been interested since he's been a teenager, and he's also worked with the Maltese Tourist Board. Did you get I wonder if you got a free holiday out of that, but if not, maybe you can put in. And also he's done some work with the BBC as well, and in fact made crafting an award-winning short film. So, and last but not least, we've got Upadesha Singh. Upadesha, not Upadesha. Okay.
Upadesha.
You told me it's Upadesha.
Yeah.
Okay, and he is a filmmaker in the early stages of his career. As I say, he helped with a project with Taraqi Wellbeing last year, and he's working to make films about the Punjabi diaspora from a perspective of being within the community, and that's interesting as well in itself, from what perspective we approach these subjects. So ਤਿੰਨਾਂ ਛੋਟੇ ਵੀਰਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਅਸੀਂ ਫਤਿਹ ਬੁਲਾਉਂਦੇ ਆ। ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ, ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ।
Of this, I will start off with you. Okay. So what inspired you to pursue interest in filmmaking?
So as a kid, I always play acting. It's just we're really good at using our imaginations to create stories, and you're playing games, and you're.
So that was right from the beginning of your childhood. That
pretty much throughout. So and then I really enjoyed film. So long story short, I have really bad eyesight. I originally wanted to be a pilot. My optician laughed at me when I told him that. He says, you're going to have to figure something else out.
God.
I then said, maybe
You
a
have to find
fireman.
an alternative.
Well, I says, maybe a fireman. He goes, you keep going for things you can't do. And I was like, okay, I can probably act then, right?
Yeah.
So I can then, and I would have actually pursued it as a career, but it wasn't something that was provided to me at school. So as an option at GCSE, it just wasn't. So then from then, I kind of just gave up on it until I met these guys. He's my brother. So yeah, well, my brother studied. My brother studied film, and from there, it kind of reignited this passion to pursue film as a medium of telling stories as well.
I mean, what sort of a support did you have behind this?
Not much, to be fair.
Yeah.
Literally, we do this as
The
a
parents
peer.
want you to be
support you.
doctors
You
and
must have
lawyers.
a.
I
No?
mean, so yeah, I guess from our parents' perspective, it's more they kind of don't really see. I mean, now
Career
it's
is obviously a
different.
career.
Now it's different from like
Yeah.
you know our mum's been very supportive of their studying what he
Angie.
did. So we're kind of a bit unique in that sense that we actually did have that support, but there is definitely that kind of sense of like perspective of people where they say, "Oh, what are you going to do with that? Like, how can you?
How can you get
provide?"
further with
know,
life?
I mean,
Essentially,
yeah.
right, yeah.
I mean, when I was a young lad, I wanted to be a professional football player.
Oh, excellent.
And my dad says, so some of it's about the imagination, that people don't imagine careers outside what they're familiar with. But, and also 1980...
I think your times were different than.
Well, every generation
it's
has their own
different.
chance,
Yeah.
But there's something about the 1984 connection as well, isn't there, that's really impacted some of your own thinking about
So yeah,
the Sikh story, as it were.
Yeah, so like a lot of family members back home in Punjab were very impacted by Jalasi as well as Operation Blue Star, and then what happened in Delhi as
Yeah.
well. And as I spoke to people around me, I realized that we all have some sort of link.
Connections.
Exactly, and I think the thing was we realized that a lot of people live through it. So for us, we're reading about it through books, and it's kind of like we almost see this as like this heroic thing. We see this as stories that you'd see like of by Baj Singh, for example, back in the day, and you see stories about Santaji, and you're saying we see this with kind of awe, but then on the flip side, the people who actually live through that have a completely different perspective of it, and I think that's kind of also understanding why did it happen, what happened.
And there's another thing as well. Chalo Asita nahi sade, our parents, we were here, she was born here and my parents were here. Well, from the 60s, but that 1980s generation, and in a sense, you're connected to some of the people who were involved in 84 and the families, especially in Germany. I think there were lots of Sikhs who left Punjab to go to Germany, who were involved with the movement, weren't they?
Yeah, there were a lot. So you realize that there were a lot of people who are still alive today who lived and actually fought against the Indian state. And when you speak to them, they tell very particular stories that we don't normally speak about outside of the circles, kind of thing, which I think is a bit. We should definitely try and bring those stories.
Well, the 6th of June is only a few weeks away.
Andy.
And it's amazing that how many years now? 30, nearly 40 years now, isn't it?
I think it's
in 38 years, yeah? 39.
39 years.
So, it's kind of jumped a generation, hasn't it?
Andy.
It still feeds the imagination. What's going on for your generation? I mean, maybe you want to come in and also, jump in here.
Yeah.
Are you also inspired by some of those events, or you want to talk about the diaspora story? You said you want to tell that.
Yeah.
I mean, the diaspora, in a sense, is a product of some of those events, isn't it?
Yeah. So I mean, in terms of like actually getting across all of those things in the actual form of like media and filmmaking, I think it's really, really important, because we've had a lot of the kind of historical events covered through written media and a lot of forms of media which maybe don't appeal to a younger generation, and so we're losing a lot of that history. I think the strongest thing that we can do as well is talk to the people who are there, as you kind of touched on, which is something quite taboo almost. Like we go from this sense of, my granddad's been here for however long, but I don't know anything about his story, about the immigrant story, about anything like that. Now, if we're going on to even deeper topics such as 1984 or anything else, it becomes a lot more impactful to actually hear it from the sources. We have so much media, about, the Lebanon War and all of these things that were very, very recent,
Yeah.
more recent even than 1984. And we've got tons of media covering that.
I want to
And
share something on that because you said something about telling their stories. I mean, if you think about the British, they still remember the stories of the First World War, the Second World War, every year.
Yeah.
And this, I was fortunate to meet but didn't know things in 1984. 3 months before the attack, I was actually in the Amritsar at the Golden Temple, and I was only young, just in my early 20s, and I did say to Santaji, I said, "Koi sanu seva deo," because we were kind of inspired, yeah.
Yeah, of course.
And he said to me, "नहीं तुसी बाहर तुसी सेवा बाद च करनी है, असी शहीदियां पाउणियां, ते तुसी फिर साडियां साखियां दसनियां." So he said, "तेरी सेवा नहीं दिखना तू." And so, in some sense, those Shiites chal gaye na, and they're not going to come back. But if we don't tell their stories, then I think we are then guilty of really betraying them. That's a betrayal, isn't it? If we don't tell our own story.
Well, the moment that you carry. Oh, sorry. We're gonna say something.
I was going to say, seva puttita, then do you know what I'm saying? Like, he asked you to do a seva, and that seva is to tell the story, and
yeah,
but that
absolutely.
server is collected as well.
Exactly, yeah.
So it's almost as though they will live on as long as we remember them, their stories, their names. They live on. We understand what they stood for. We understand the message, and as long as that struggle is continued, we will prevail in the end, right? And I think that's the thing. It's like film would be such a great way of telling that story, right? And I know there's been a lot of documentaries recently released and a lot of BBC channel shows and stuff like that, but I feel like a lot of the time they kind of almost kind of try and both sides it, and it feels like not every situation requires two sides.
Can you? I mean, you're filmmakers. Can you ever tell a story objectively? Can you tell an objective story?
It's impossible. The only thing that you can do to be objective is to announce your bias. There's I don't remember his name now, but there was a sociologist who said the same thing. Before every report or journal that he would publish, he would just simply say, "I'm writing from this perspective. These are my experiences." So bear that in mind when you read my work. I am looking at it from this kind of lens.
But that's not an excuse not to do your research, is it?
No.
We still can try to fact check. I mean, one of the big issues at the moment is fake media and fact checking. That's really important, isn't it, to check your facts?
I mean, you could probably touch on this as well. When you're editing, I think that's also when you have a lot of burden of responsibility to not try and change what somebody said.
Just wanted to come to this. You was talking about you're going to make some films in Punjabi diaspora. I mean, you're going to spend some time with the community to understand what is it. How are you going to?
How would you approach that?
How would you sort of?
Just describe us through your methodology, as it were.
The kind of process behind it.
I think I'm interested.
I mean, it would vary by project, obviously. So it would vary differently if it was fiction or non-fiction, massively. So if we're depicting even the remotest historical event, but even if it is a fiction film, but from a non-fiction kind of historical standpoint, you have to do your research. And I think the best way to do that is to talk to a variety of people who have the experiences, the lived experiences.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah, sort of.
Yeah, and I think.
And how about would you do that? Where would you start from?
Well, I think everything comes down to network, doesn't it? Who you know and who's willing to talk, because a lot of people that won't be as willing to share their experiences, and some other people who have shared their experiences multiple times are willing to do it again and again. But I think the great thing about new media is it's becoming a lot more accessible to have these conversations over the web, in person, however you want to do it, and you can, if you really want to meet somebody or talk to somebody, I think you can. I mean, we've had great conversations that way.
But Dave, you said that you were since your teenage years you were making films, or you were again. What's the influence? Where does that come from?
What inspired you to?
Well, unlike a lot of Apne, I didn't grow up surrounded by a lot of Apne. I went to school. I was one of the only ones in my year.
Okay. So you must have faced a lot of racism then?
Yeah. There was a lot of
And
that.
you had your case as well?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so they must have tormented you about your case?
Yeah, there was a lot of that. I mean, you know, it was a kind of blessing in disguise because it kind of helped me grow closer to know where I come from and the history of being a Sikh and stuff like that.
So you start looking into your history. Was
Yeah,
it, or-
definitely. You know, my family has had a big hand in that as well. And not in like a kind of forceful way of you have to know where you come from, but like in a way of, you know, just an encouraging kind of knowledgeable way to.
Place of love.
ਅੱਛਾ I think it's worth sharing that ਦਰਸ਼ਕਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਗੁਰਦੇਵ ਸਿੰਘ ਆ ਇਹ ਯੰਗ ਫਿਲਮ ਮੇਕਰ ਤੇ ਇਹ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਵੀ ਮੈਂ ਸਕੂਲ 'ਚ ਜਦੋਂ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਸੀ ਤਾਂ ਗੋਰਿਆਂ ਦਾ ਸਕੂਲ ਸੀ ਮੈਂ ਹੀ ਸੀ ਤੇ ਨਸਲਵਾਦ ਬਹੁਤ ਇਹਨੇ ਐਕਸਪੀਰੀਅੰਸ ਕੀਤਾ ਪਰ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਆਪਣੀ ਸਿੱਖੀ ਕਾਇਮ ਰੱਖੀ
ਉਹਨੇ ਸਿੱਖੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਛੱਡੀ ਆਪਣੀ।
ਛੱਡੀ ਨਾ ਇਹਦੇ ਮਾਂ-ਬਾਪ ਦਾ
ਬਿਲਕੁਲ
ਵੀ ਇਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਬਹੁਤ ਵੱਡਾ ਯੋਗਦਾਨ ਸੀ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਕਿਹਾ ਵੀ ਮਾਂ-ਬਾਪ ਨੇ ਸਿੱਖੀ ਨੂੰ ਇੱਕ ਡਰਾ ਕੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਨਾ ਸਿੱਖੀ ਨਾਲ ਜੋੜਿਆ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਪਿਆਰ ਵਧਾਇਆ ਸਿੱਖੀ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਤੇ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਆਪ ਆਪਣੇ ਹਿਸਟਰੀ ਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਵੀ ਜਾਣਕਾਰੀ ਦਿੱਤੀ ਆ ਇਟਸ ਰੀਅਲੀ ਇੰਪੋਰਟੈਂਟ ਇਜ਼ ਇਟ
ਪ੍ਰੇਰਨਾ ਕਾਫੀ ਮਿਲੀ ਮਾਂ ਪਿਓ
parents should empathize with the youngsters and not kind of like just kind of ignore what they're going through as well. Yeah,
it's really important because my parents are actually both my parents are born here, so they kind of
they understand you
they
more.
understand and know the experience.
Yeah.
and did they, I mean, would they go to the school and would they talk to the teachers?
Yeah, I mean, my dad actually, like, he actually did like a whole assembly one
Wow.
time.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
That's-
and he actually spoke about Sikhi in front of like the whole school. So
Yeah.
it was.
How did he make you feel when he actually
Did it
did?
make you feel 10 foot
Yeah.
tall?
Yeah, it definitely. I mean, like, it just showed that like my dad's willing to stand in front of all these kids and kind of just explain.
I bet he had a lot of
where-
friends after that.
I did that as well at my son and daughter school at Myton in Warwick, and I did 2 assemblies, and yeah, they were saying, "Yeah, Dad's really cool." So
Because my son was the only Patka.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, one, and he had the rest.
I think
were
I
the
exploded some
yeah.
stereotypes because I came with my
Yeah.
daddy, and they thought I'd be talking some kind of kind of Indian kind of dialect, you know.
Yeah.
And I wasn't. I was talking with a Yorkshire accent.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
exactly.
Talking in a language that they understood, and they really kind of. I think.
on their level.
Yeah, but I think, I mean, in a sense, you know, we talk about making films not for the Sikh community because, you know, we might be making films for the wider community.
Yeah.
It's really important, isn't it? We don't, you know, we don't kind of try. I mean, there's too much of the older films where it's almost been apologetic for who you are. You know, there's a balance, not being aggressive, but being assertive. Really important, isn't it, to get those characters through as well.
In our kind of in our film from last year with Taraqi, What Could Go Wrong, that was a big part of it. When we kind of spoke and had our meetings beforehand, a lot of the process was, well, how do we bring that Punjabi Sikh, well, not necessarily Sikh in that
Punjabi,
on that case, Punjabi, but that Punjabi influence through. And actually, we thought, well, if we name him a Punjabi name, we cast a Punjabi actor.
Yeah.
He speaks with a bit of Punjabi here and there. That's as much as we need to do.
Yeah.
Because that's his experience. That's what we all experience on a day-to-day basis, and we don't need to do more than that.
And this is what we should bring forward. These type of things that other people can relate to that as well.
Yeah.
to
Manji, I agree with you because I think there's two, you can think about an actor who happens to be Punjabi, or you can think about a Punjabi actor. There's a difference between the two, isn't there?
Exactly.
Hanji.
You know, and I think that we need more Punjabis who are actors, not acting. In fact, there's been an interesting discussion in a lot of film production about whether black and brown people should play roles that are not black and brown. You know, you have these period dramas now.
Sort of time,
And well, Sikhs tend to play kind of when they play, they tend to Turban Sikhs play a kind of a Sikh role, don't they?
Yeah.
I think it really
Yeah.
depends on who's making the film, and again, it goes back to the question: who's telling the stories?
That's
Yeah.
it.
Like in Bollywood, we know exactly what's going
Oh,
on.
yeah.
Santa Banta, you know, that kind of
That's
thing.
it, yeah.
Oh yeah.
No.
But then on the
So
flip
embarrassing.
side, or it's the very stoic, heroic soldier that's
Yeah,
that's
defending
it, yeah.
Desh,
Yeah.
right? That's defending India, you know, and I think it's really reductive of us as a community because it takes away our humanity. We
Of
are
course it
people at
does.
the end of the day. We're all different. We all laugh at. We all,
Yeah.
and I think that was one of the things that I found really interesting studying Santi was, in all the pictures that I was shown as a kid, he's very stoic.
Yeah.
And then when I started studying him, he's laughing in every other picture,
Yeah.
right? He's smiling.
Yeah.
All of the Karkus, they were all smiling.
Yeah.
And I think it's the method of storytelling can really bring forward the characters, like you were saying, break the stereotypes. You know, should black and brown people play non-black and brown characters? White actors have been playing brown people for decades. Okay, Gandhi, Jesus, let's go all over them, right?
Hector, the Carry On movies.
Exactly. Achilles.
There used to be this series. It's called, I think it was called In Half Up Mom, and there was this Ranjit, and he was a Sikh.
Yeah.
So
he was a white dude that was doing it.
Yeah, the white dude. He used to have a snake belt on his turban as well.
You see, and like, it's so funny to me when like white people will complain about stuff like that, about like, let's say The Little Mermaid now being black, and not think, wait, Troy 300. We have a Scottish guy playing King Leonidas from Sparta. Makes no sense whatsoever.
So ਦਰਸ਼ਕ ਕੀ ਸੋਚਦੇ ਆ, ਅਸੀਂ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਦੇ ਆ ਵੀ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਜਾਂ ਪੰਜਾਬੀਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਜਦੋਂ ਰੋਲ ਮਿਲਦੇ ਆ, ਉਹ
ਟਿਪੀਕਲ ਰੋਲਸ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਆ,
ਟਿਪੀਕਲ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਰੋਲ ਹੁੰਦਾ। ਅੱਜ ਕੱਲ ਹਾਲੀਵੁੱਡ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਿਹਦਾ ਨਾ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਆਉਂਦਾ ਤਾਂ ਉਹ ਟੈਕਸੀ ਡਰਾਈਵਰ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਹੈ, ਨਿਊਯਾਰਕ taxi driver. In fact,
it doesn't apply to everyone.
It doesn't, but there's an interesting twist just yesterday when we had Harry and Meghan's incident.
Oh yeah,
it was a New York taxi driver that picked them up.
And he was taking the ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਆਪਣੀ ਇਦਾਂ he was advertising about himself like ਮੈਂ ਹੋਰ ਥੋੜਾ ਜਿਹਾ ਕਹਿ ਦਵਾਂ,
he was doing
to get
interviews.
a bit popular.
He was doing interviews. I mean, he was apparently the most truthful of all of them. But the important thing is that, you know, we rarely see, I mean, or we get very hyper masculine roles. And you know, I want to see sensitive men. I want to see vulnerable Sikh men. But it's almost if we're not allowed to be vulnerable.
We want to see Sikh women.
We haven't been
told.
Women, we like everything we do seems to be hyper focused on the masculine side, our history,
and the reverse for the women in Punjabi films.
Yeah, the passive kind of victim.
Yeah, the victim.
100%. So like, I mean, like, it's kind of like this is what we're saying about like having representation behind the camera, is that we then get to decide what's the story that we're going to tell. Like, for example, when we were making What Could Go Wrong, we had a long conversation about what's the name of the main character. We all had different perspectives. We were all talking about different names.
You're all individuals. You've got your own sort
of. We were just trying to say what's the meaning of these names. What name sounds good. What name, you know, will be pronounced properly. And
that's really good. Like you know, you sort of
but that,
come from different angles.
But that also raises that other issue. You might want to come in here, which is we're not allowed to make Sikhs as tragic characters.
No.
Because that would be seen as Dendikala, or that would be seen as betrayal of our own great. So in a sense, we're trapped in this as well, aren't we? You know, I mean, for example, I'll give you. I mean, there's lots of drug addiction in Punjab. At the moment.
Yeah, of course.
You know, I mean, let's be honest. You know, every other Punjabi young lad is a drug addict. But how often do we depict drug addiction?
I think was it Utta Punjab.
There was Utta Punjab. That's one that we've had. Why suicides?
Even then, we go from both extremes, don't we? We go from victimizing them completely, or kind of playing that role of they're violent criminals. So there is a balance there. There are violent criminals out there, and there are victims out there, but there's also just people at the heart of everything. Everybody's a person, and that's what's at the core of every film. There's no films that doesn't relate back to personhood.
Good, Dave. Do you want to come in?
About
on this, what we just talked about.
Yeah, so I just think that we need to like have people behind the camera a lot more, telling the story, because that's something that was highlighted to me from a young age, from like my college teachers and stuff, saying that like, you know, the actors, they get all the glitz and the glamour, whatever, but the people behind the camera, they're the ones that get to tell the story, and those are the people that make the decisions.
Doing all the work behind the camera.
They make the decisions of what the characters say, how they're portrayed, things like that. So that's kind of, when my teacher said that to me, it was like, it kind of, you know, the penny dropped that if I want to tell stories about where I'm from and the people that I represent, then that's where I need to be in order for to tell them stories properly.
We've got a call actually, and if I'm right, we've got a call from Dr. Jogeshwar Singh from Switzerland, highly respected Sikh intellectual, and I know that he's got some interesting views about Sikhs and films. So, Dr. Saab, ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਅਸੀਂ ਜੀ ਆਖਦੇ ਹਾਂ, ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ, ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ।
ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ, ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਦੀ ਫਤਿਹ। ਡਾਕਟਰ ਸਾਹਿਬ,
ਹਾਂਜੀ, ਧੰਨਵਾਦ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ, ਤੁਸੀਂ ਇੰਟਰਸਟ ਰੱਖਿਆ, ਔਰ ਤੁਸੀਂ, I don't know if you've heard the discussion so far, But
Hanji.
what kind of challenges do we face in terms of representing Sikhs in film, and how can we overcome some of those challenges? What's your thought?
देखो एक बड़ा चैलेंज था ये है कि there are some self-styled religious authorities who tend to object if there is any references to the gurus or to know the lives of the sahibzadas or to the others.
Yeah.
May I make a different point here?
Yes, please.
Continue.
You know, many years ago, and I think I mentioned it to you, Dr. earlier also, what I see till now is a lack of, just nice films with Sikh households. I would avoid the religious aspect completely because there is enough information about the gurus and their teachings. The film which comes to my mind is The English Patient, in which there was for once a Sikh character who was not presented as a kind of joker like the Bollywood films generally do.
Yeah.
And after seeing that film, I saw it here in Switzerland, and so many Swiss people walked up to me and asked me, you are a Sikh? Yes, we've seen the film. The impact that had
So
made me
advancing.
think that we should just make films about nice stories with Sikhs and also have Sikh actors. I mean, why should a non-Sikh be acting as a Sikh in all the films?
That's
So my
interesting, yeah.
suggestion is, instead of going towards the religious side, we should take some nice story. I mean, like The English Patient was a novel by Michael Ondyatye. There are enough stories, from Punjabi literature or even English literature, and just make a nice film showing Sikh culture, our everyday living, our characters. Because any Sikh filmmaker is an ambassador in the sense that he has to counter this distorted image which is all the time propounded by Bollywood.
Dr. Saab, one of the
15 minutes of a film about Sara Gadi. Now, Sara Gadi should be a wonderful topic, but what I saw from Bollywood, I mean, it was totally ridiculous. Frankly, I'm sorry to say that.
I think a lot of people were very unhappy with the way in which they're kind of almost mythologizing that and turning those characters into slightly stereotypical characters. But no, you've raised some really interesting. Just one last thing, Dr. Saab. You said that we should avoid the kind of religious issues. Sikhs are a historical people. We are a people. But the problem is our history is quite kind of contradictory. It's kind of, there's no unanimity. So how does somebody who's trying to tell the Sikh story as a historical story, how do they navigate these choppy waters?
Yeah.
I think one thing we could navigate there, Doctor, is make a nice film about some of our great generals, whether it is Hari Singh Nalwa or Akali Phula Singh, Hari Singh Nalwa, Sher Singh Atariwala, Sham Singh Atariwala. I mean, our youngsters know so much about Rommel and Montgomery and all these people. Why can't we make a nice film about some of our, because in that film, we can bring in some of our historical perspectives. If there is a film about, for example, Hari Singh Nalwa, it can cover some of the Misl period and how, even though they were fighting with each other, each time a foreign enemy used to come, the Misls used to get together. So that could be a lesson for our present day politicians also, who are each other like cats and dogs without ever uniting.
No, that's really good, Grace, and thanks very much
Thank
for
you
your
so
call.
much.
I'll
Thank
actually
you.
put that to them. I mean, Dr. Jagvir Singh is obviously, well kind of versed, and he mentioned The English Patient. I don't know if you've seen that one, but it's actually interesting because the Sikh character in there is quite a flawed character, and he's a turban and a beard, but it's the time of the Raj, and I think it's set in Singapore, where the Sikhs were in charge. But I think he was smoking and things like that.
Right, okay.
And
Doesn't give a good image,
Right?
He's a person.
He was a person, and I know that some people found that quite disturbing.
And some people do that as
Yeah.
well.
There was a film, I think it was a Malaysian film that told the story of the British in Malaysia and the British Indian soldiers who were Sikh, who were then committing atrocities against the Malaysian people, the Malay people. And there was a lot of backlash against that film, but I was there we need to come to grips with our own history where we weren't the good guys as well, right? We always have this perception that Sikhs were always on the right side of history, when even amongst ourselves we fight so much, right? I remember a friend of mine he posted a picture of 3 men in Hong Kong being arrested by a Sikh policeman holding their braids Chinese people back in the day had
Yeah,
really long,
yeah.
holding their gish and leading them like dogs. And I was like, it actually sent me into like a mental health crisis, because I was like,
Yeah.
if anyone should understand the sanctity of gish, it must be you. And
Yeah.
here you are
Well,
disrespecting someone
no,
else's gish, and like,
This, I mean, just on that one,
ਹਾਂਜੀ।
I don't know, ਦਰਸ਼ਕਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਸ਼ਾਇਦ ਪਤਾ ਹੋਊਗਾ, ਜਦੋਂ ਬ੍ਰਿਟਿਸ਼ ਨੇ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਤੇ ਆਪਣਾ ਕਬਜ਼ਾ ਕਰ ਲਿਆ ਸੀਗਾ, ਤਾਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਭਰਤੀ ਕੀਤਾ ਸੀ into the security apparatus. Army ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ, in fact at one point I think there was something like over nearly 50% of the army was Sikhs.
something
But
like
not only in the army, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ police force ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਭਰਤੀ ਕੀਤਾ ਸੀ, so ਮਲੇਸ਼ੀਆ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ, ਸਿੰਗਾਪੁਰ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ, ਫਾਰ ਈਸਟ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ, ਹਾਂਗਕਾਂਗ, ਔਰ ਸ਼ੰਘਾਈ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਸ਼ੰਘਾਈ ਵੀ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਕਬਜ਼ਾ ਸੀ, in fact the whole police force was Sikhs. And I've been reading research on that. And I don't know if you know, I think those kind of those comics that used to come out of China,
yeah.
there used to be a really vicious turban bearded character in those.
Okay.
And it was based on the police officers who were brutal to the local population.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
They were violent. In fact, they were so violent that the Sikhs in Shanghai, even today, are seen as devils.
Right. So
Yeah.
it's like a long-term kind of impact that we have now.
Now, ਅਸੀਂ ਹੁਣ ਜੇ ਇਦਾਂ ਕਹੀਏ ਤਾਂ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਚੰਗਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਲੱਗਦਾ, ਪਰ you know, ਅੱਜ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਸਿੱਖ ਪੱਗਾਂ ਵਾਲੇ ਜ਼ੁਲਮ ਕਰਦੇ ਆ।
ਬਿਲਕੁਲ ਬਿਲਕੁਲ
KPS ਕੇ ਵਾਲੇ ਕਿੰਨਾ ਜ਼ੁਲਮ ਕੀਤਾ, ਹੁਣ ਵੀ ਹੋ ਰਿਹਾ ਜ਼ੁਲਮ, ਤੇ ਆਪਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਠੀਕ ਆ, ਆਪਾਂ ਇਹ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਉਹ ਸਿੱਖ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੋ ਸਕਦਾ ਕਈ ਵਾਰੀ ਵੀ,
ਪਰ ਸਾਡੇ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਚੋਂ ਹੀ ਆ ਇਹ ਹੋ ਰਹੀਆਂ
ਦੇਖ
ਗੱਲਾਂ।
ਸਾਡੇ ਚ
ਅਸੀਂ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਢੱਕ ਕੇ ਤਾਂ ਰੱਖ ਨਹੀਂ ਸਕਦੇ। We
ਹਰੇਕ-
have to bring them in the reality, in the real world, to
ਦੇਖੋ-
understand that this is happening out there. you know.
ਹਰੇਕ ਕੌਮ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਚੰਗੇ ਵੀ ਹੁੰਦੇ, ਮਾੜੇ ਵੀ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਆ। ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਹੁਣ ਅਸੀਂ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਹੁਣ ਬਲਾਤਕਾਰੀਆਂ, you know, we're easy to say ਇਹ ਪਾਕਿਸਤਾਨੀ ਬਲਾਤਕਾਰੀਆਂ ਕਰਦੇ ਆ,
ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਉਂਗਲਾਂ ਕਰਨੀਆਂ ਆਪਾਂ ਨਾ।
ਕੀ ਸਾਡੇ 'ਚ ਨਹੀਂ ਇਹ ਕੰਮ ਹੁੰਦਾ? So again, I mean, how do you choose what topics? How do you choose
It's a
what topics to
difficult one,
focus?
yeah.
I think it's, you know, as you said earlier, filmmaking is a labor of love. So it has to be something that's personal to you. And, you know, at the start of a process of making a film, it's important, as Adair said earlier, to do your research, do it as much as you can, make sure whatever decisions you're going to make creatively, they're informed as much as
Yeah, I think that's
possible,
important, yeah.
historically, if it's like based on fact and you
Yeah.
know, based on real people. So I think that's so to pick a topic, you have to make sure it's personal to you, because then that way you're motivated to tell the story properly with proper context all the way through.
And just touching on that as well, the research process, it comes down to having the right team in place as well. Like,
Definitely.
filmmaking is such a collaborative thing. You can't come from one perspective. It has to be a collective.
All round sort of, yeah.
So if nobody on your team has any experience or lived experience of the kind of topics that you're
Yeah.
discussing in the film, the themes of the film,
So what do you do then?
how can you really
Yeah.
tell that film with any authority or authenticity? It's like, it's the same thing as going
Yeah.
to a Punjabi restaurant and having, you know, a Frenchman cook your food, you know?
Yeah.
It's the same thing. They don't have the same lived experiences as somebody who's coming from Punjab, having cooked the food their whole life. So
I mean, if we talk about taboo subjects, in some senses, it's only worth making films if you explore those taboo
Otherwise,
subjects. I
I
mean,
agree.
you know, otherwise you're just
Yeah.
telling old
Otherwise,
stories, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's a paradox here, because once you step into that space,
that's
you
where
start
all
to,
the
It's a
you know,
slippery slope,
and
yeah.
particularly with a close-knit community,
yeah.
and you know, you start to then get the wrath of those
Yeah.
people. I'll give you an example. I mean, you know, mixed race marriages.
Anji.
I mean, you'll know in Germany there were actually a lot of mixed race marriages. A lot of the
You would
Sikhs who
assume so,
came to
yeah,
Germany
of
and
course.
in Holland, I know because Mary Francie, they'd get married to local women.
Anji.
Or ਪੱਕੇ ਹੋ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਸੀਗੇ. And so actually wherever Sikhs have gone, ਜੇ ਅਫਰੀਕਾ ਚ ਗਏ, East Africa, ਉੱਥੇ ਵੀ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਨੇ ਕਾਲੀਆਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਵਿਆਹ ਕਰਾਏ ਸੀਗੇ. I've just come across, I don't know if you know, there's a film about it, that you know the cameleers that you know in Australia before they had the railroads and the train, they actually used to have camels,
Okay.
and the camels were brought in from the Middle East and from Punjab,
Right. Okay.
and so most of them they were Afghan cameleers, but there were Sikhs as well.
Okay.
And-
Afghan Sikhs, do you mean?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, Punjabi Sikhs
Okay,
who
okay,
were from in that region, yeah,
Anji, Anji.
who were cameleers. So the first freight, we talk about Sikh truck drivers.
Hanji.
They would also cameleers. There's a kind of tradition,
Yeah.
and so they were actually running these camel trains across Australia. And it was only until the 30s that then they closed them down because they
They
got
had
the roads.
railways, right?
And so ਅੱਜ-ਕੱਲ੍ਹ ਵੀ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਆਸਟ੍ਰੇਲੀਆ ਜਾਓ, there's millions of camels avara, they just let go loose.
They just let them loose.
And there's Sikhs who then, some of them returned to Punjab,
Hanji.
but a lot of them married Aboriginal women.
Right.
And there are whole villages in the outback that have got Sikh names.
Okay.
Hanji.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you know about that.
No.
Yeah, look it up. Sikh cameleers, do the research.
Yeah.
So ਜਿੱਥੇ ਵੀ ਸਿੱਖ ਗਿਆ ਉੱਥੇ ਠੀਕ ਹੈ ਅਸੀਂ ਆਪਣੇ ਪਰਿਵਾਰ ਵੀ ਲਿਆਂਦੇ ਆ
ਜੀ
ਪਰ ਇਹ ਵੀ ਮੰਨਣਾ ਪਊਗਾ ਸਿੱਖ ਨੇ ਉੱਥੇ ਦੇ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਆਪਣੇ ਰਿਸ਼ਤੇ ਕੀਤੇ ਆ Is that a taboo subject? ਸਾਨੂੰ ਕੀ ਦੱਸਣਾ ਚਾਹਦੇ ਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ
Well, I mean, the taboo comes in, like, what I've realised is a lot of the time, especially when if it's a guy, it's
Yeah.
a man doing it.
then it's
completely-
okay, but
bumped
if the
without.
girl's
Yeah.
doing it
If
then
the girl does
there's
it,
a
then
problem now.
There is a problem, and I think
And what is that problem?
patriarchy, I guess, right? Like it's
Yeah.
literally because men kind of dominate.
And then we
spaces.
talk about quality now.
Hanji.
ਧਰਮ
In
ਚ,
our parenting,
you
yeah.
Well,
know, ਸਾਡਾ
it's
ਧਰਮ
something-
ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਇੱਕੋ ਜਿਹੇ ਹਾਂ।
Well,
I don't want to keep saying everything's the white man's fault, but I guess it's something we probably adopted from the British.
Well, it's also this ingrained idea that a man can, spread his ideology to his children, but a woman can't do the same
But
to
you
her
know-
So
children.
it's like keeping the name sort of thing. Or,
Yeah.
But Manji,
yeah.
maybe the
Keeping
other
the name going.
But the other side of it is that there's a real fear that if we don't hold on to our family traditions
Heritage
and
traditions.
structure, then we will get watered down
Yeah.
and we will become something that we aren't. It will be a kind of a cultural annihilation. What do you say to that?
Oh,
Yeah, go.
You
no,
come in.
yeah, I mean,
Do all
like,
three of us go?
Yeah.
well, if you think about it like this, like, in a traditional household, like, a man goes to work and then the woman would stay at home and look after the kids and be the one who enriches the kids with.
Are you talking sort of this age now, or
In a more traditional.
In a traditional
In a
house,
traditional
in a traditional
household.
household.
The archetypal.
Yeah.
I understand?
Yeah, yeah.
family.
So
So
I'm
like-
saying not now. So
Yeah.
Even now, like, let's say if both the parents are going off to work, it's still a lot of the labour of child
That the
rearing
woman
falls
will
to the woman.
Yeah.
She's
Yeah.
got a double. She's got two jobs
It's the second
basically. We
shift.
know that.
It's
Yeah.
Yeah.
called the second shift.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've all been there. Myself.
We were.
We've done 2 shifts.
Yeah. But yeah, like I was saying that, like, so they would be the one that, passes knowledge on to the kids, the moms.
Yeah.
And so, like, you could look at it from that
So
perspective.
why can't the father? What's wrong with the father?
No, the father can too, but what I'm saying is that, like,
And should.
Because they always say, "Oh, it's the woman's responsibility to
that's what
bring
it's- yeah.
the
Yeah,
the
yeah.
children
But that's
up
what you're saying
and
is that's
secure
the
their need."
stereotype.
It's
that
a
we've-
stereotype.
Yeah,
but I'm
yeah.
talking about still today you hear these things. It's the woman's job. Why is
But-
it the woman's job?
No, but
You
I'm
know?
just saying, as an answer to what Baji was saying
Yeah.
earlier about, like, people saying, oh, it's a more issue if a woman
Yeah.
Yeah.
marries outside of.
Yeah.
No, I
Bangladesh.
get you.
Yeah.
When in
So-
actuality,
Yeah.
But
yeah.
well, that's really
It's kind of
interesting.
flipped, isn't it? Almost
Yeah.
like, we like our perspective is kind of flipped with it.
Well, I mean, again, we only take one side of it. We assume that if she marries outside of the tradition, that she also is abandoning the tradition. But it could well be that she then.
She's actually
Takes
embracing
that
and
step,
taking that step
Yeah.
forward and bringing her children
there's lots of
into
examples.
Sikhi.
There's lots of
Yeah.
examples of that.
And
But maybe
It
that's.
doesn't mean that she has to bring them in a certain way, but she's teaching.
But that's
You know,
another
about
story.
the history
But that's
and-
another story
yeah.
that needs to be told, maybe.
Yeah.
It's empowering the individual and taking responsibility for your own actions. At the end of the day, everybody has a responsibility to learning about their own culture and passing that on to whoever, or to not.
Yeah.
And that's
And that's
your choice
fine.
as a person.
I mean, actually, if you think about it, again, if you look at, I mean, we're in the West now, but in India, there were many Sikhs who are marrying outside of Sikh. So I know that, Mahatma Gandhi, when there was the Indian independence movement, I don't know if you know, but he said every Hindu family, the eldest son should become a Sikh. And that was, and lots of families followed. So what you find is in a lot of Hindu families, there's one of the sons is a Sikh, and then sometimes they would marry into Hindu families. And so do you know what I mean? There's that
And why was that?
well, I think Mahatma Gandhi was trying to say that we want Sikhs because they're brave. I mean, it's a stereotype.
Yeah.
And that
It's
because I mean,
absolutely,
it's a stereotype. It's a truth as well. In the independence movement, Sikhs give.
Yeah,
huge
they
sacrifice.
came forward and.
But the point is this: that there are many, if you go to Delhi and places like that, there are many Sikh families where there's kind of Hindu and Sikh in that as well.
Yeah, they have got,
Why are we afraid of this hybridity? Why are we afraid to kind of accept that we might not be pure breeds?
Yeah.
I think it's this kind of like superiority complex that you may have adopted, like, for example, like the caste system, but it's like this Punjabiyat kind of identity where if someone else comes in, you're now watering it down. Instead of, you're looking at the negative and you're focusing on the differences rather than, you might be strengthening, the culture. You might be
We don't
involved
see
in the
the
culture.
positives, what could come out of it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, has anyone ever tried jollof rice with some shai paneer? It's an elite combination,
Well, there you
and anyone can like try it and try it for
That
themselves.
sounds great.
Yeah.
Well, that's a good example,
Yeah.
that we see now in some of the more avant-garde Indian Punjabi restaurants now are beginning to bring all kinds of dishes
Yeah,
in.
different
Exactly,
dishes.
right? Like,
Yeah.
so I think the thing is that people are inherently afraid of change, and I think there's this almost like identity crisis we've been grappling with for the last 100 years, where,
Yeah.
with the Singh Sabha movement, for example, where a lot of the elders that we speak to, the animosity amongst Hindus, Sikhs and Muslims before partition, they were our cousins. We used to
Yeah.
go and have sleepovers at their house kind of thing. And now
It's true.
I
in
think-
this country,
yeah.
we've almost adopted this kind of like,
Us and them.
exactly on steroids though, that like
Yeah.
that fight amongst the
But
I think because our
there is
parents
a-
came over
Well, no, it's
and,
not.
and they've seen all
Well,
that trauma
They have.
and
yeah.
the partition,
Mm.
and they brought it here and they passed it on to their children.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up that my dad, he's
And
all-
I never understood it, to be honest, till I got older.
I mean, most
you
of my
know,
dad's friends were Muslim.
yeah.
and putting hate
But he
into
used to
you
say,
and,
says,
you know, all these
"Banjani,
things.
don't trust these people.
Yeah, like back in the day, how many of Sikhs that when you look
Yeah.
at history, they had very Muslim-sounding names, right? Like
Yeah.
Khan Singh, for example. It's a piece of our history, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah.
And like
So there's so much there. We've only got about 5 minutes left. Actually, I mean,
Time flies.
ਅਸੀਂ ਮੈਂ ਸੱਚ ਨਾਲ ਅਸੀਂ 12-13 ਸਵਾਲ ਤਿਆਰ ਕੀਤੇ ਸੀਗੇ.
We didn't use them.
We don't need
We
them.
didn't.
And this is the beauty of people who
This
are
is
creative.
it is
yeah?
actually very.
So
yeah.
I mean, we've only got about 5 minutes left. So anything that you would want to share that we haven't had an opportunity. Maybe start with you.
Yeah.
Maybe that's something that we can pick up in the future as well. Yeah.
So one thing that I did want to talk about was there's this idea that we should be focused on quality over quantity.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to focus on that, but actually quality comes from quantity.
Yeah.
The more stories we tell, the more perspectives we have,
Yeah.
the better those stories
Mhm.
and the better those perspectives
So
will come out.
Some people might say that we're just kind of
Maybe so.
cluttering up. I mean, in a sense,
that's where we come in. We ensure the quality is still there.
Okay.
well, but that's the thing. If you don't have,
We
The
get a
bad-
Trumpian kind of media.
And
you don't know what the good will be. So in that sense, we need to promote more community filmmakers, local filmmakers. We need to be promoting all sorts of media
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
the local, from boots on the ground, and kind of rely on that.
Should
as
we
well.
stay in the secular space to avoid all this kind of religious, or should we go into that religious space?
I think that's entirely down to the individual creator.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, if you have a lot of knowledge
Mm.
and about Itihas,
It's about yourself, isn't it?
Why
really?
wouldn't you
Why
spread
wouldn't
that?
you, yeah.
Why wouldn't you
Yeah.
spread that?
Mhm.
For myself, it's more of an artsy thing.
Yeah.
But for others, it might be for more spreading
Yeah.
knowledge. So I think that was my sort of like one
That's
thing
good.
that I really wanted to share was just if you're out there and you want to create something, don't be afraid. Don't be worried about the quality right now, because the more you do it
Yeah.
and the more that other people do it, the better it's going to get.
Good day.
Good Dave, any final
Well,
words?
what kind of any
So-
projects, any thoughts
Yeah,
that you have
yeah.
that we haven't touched on so far?
Well, actually, there's something I'd like to say to whoever's listening, especially of the older generation.
You
Yeah,
can talk
why
direct
not?
about it.
Is
Yeah.
that like if you have children or nephews or nieces who want to pursue a career in telling stories, whether that's through animation, live films, graphic design, photography, like support them and allow them to do it, because then in that way our ethias, our stories will get told, because then like Baji, you want to become a footballer. We now, a lot of Upner who are football fans say,
Yeah.
where are all the Upner football players?
Yeah.
But it's because no one supports
No one
supports them in pursuing that career path. So I think it's important to support your children if they want to pursue them career paths, because then we will become more present in like
Yeah.
the zeitgeist
course,
of
yeah.
films and medium and stuff.
You're kind of inspiring others as well
Yeah, you
by your
are.
own example.
Thank you.
I mean,
You're a
sometimes
big
that's the best
example,
thing we
yeah.
can use the example. Updesh, final couple of minutes.
Building off of what Gurdev just said, let's support some local Midlands-based filmmakers, Gurjant Singh and Aaron Kapoor, who are running the Wolverhampton Film Festival next weekend. Is it on the Sunday that the award ceremony is?
Yeah,
So
Sunday,
do we
yeah.
know what date that is? Is that the
The
29th?
28th.
28th of
Yeah.
28th of May. Please attend if you can, because it's these spaces that have been curated by us where we get to tell our stories, and we see a severe shortfall in support from the community.
Absolutely.
And there's only so much we can do as filmmakers,
Yeah,
right,
there's a limit
to kind of tell these stories. But if people don't turn up and actually support
Exactly.
them, then where do we go from there, right?
No, it's brilliant.
Yeah, I just want to thank you guys. I really enjoyed
Thank you for having
the
us.
show
Yeah.
today.
Thank you very
because
much.
I would love to bring you again, to be honest.
We'll
And
definitely have them back.
the honesty
For
you
sure,
bring
we'd
on the
love to come
table
back,
and
yeah.
discuss, and I think this is what we need to go further with. And you
In
know,
fact,
The beauty of filmmaking, is that we kind of branch off into completely different angles ourselves as well. We
Yeah.
all go into different areas and we all have different perspectives, and we learn so much when we
Yeah.
do filmmaking. When we just in research, there's so much desk research we have to do
yeah.
before we even
Yeah.
conceptualize
Of
an idea.
course, yeah.
You know, I think ਮੈਂ ਤਾਂ ਇਹੀ ਕਹੂੰਗਾ ਦਰਸ਼ਕਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਆਪਾਂ ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਮੈਂ ਸ਼ੁਰੂਆਤ ਤੇ ਦੱਸੀ ਸੀ ਵੀ ਸਾਡੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਸਾਖੀ ਆ ਸਾਡੀ ਸਟੋਰੀ ਆ
Too.
ਇਹ ਦੂਜਿਆਂ ਨੇ ਦੱਸੀ ਆ ਅਸੀਂ ਆਪਣਾ ਇਤਿਹਾਸ ਹੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਲਿਖਿਆ ਅਸੀਂ ਆਪਣਾ ਕਲਚਰ ਹੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਲਿਖਿਆ ਅਸੀਂ ਆਪਣੇ ਯੋਧਿਆਂ ਦੀਆਂ ਗਾਥਾਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਦੱਸੀਆਂ ਠੀਕ ਹੈ ਢਾਡੀਆਂ ਨੇ ਸਟੇਜਾਂ ਤੇ ਤਾਂ ਦੱਸੀਆਂ ਠੀਕ ਹੈ ਕਿਸੇ ਗੁਰਮੁਖੀ ਦੇ ਬੁੱਕਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਲਿਖੀਆਂ ਗਈਆਂ ਪਰ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਵਾਈਡਰ ਆਡੀਅנס ਹੈ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਗੋਰੇ ਅੱਜ ਕੱਲ ਬੜਾ ਸ਼ੌਂਕ ਰੱਖਦੇ ਆ
ਕਈ ਬੋਲੀਆਂ ਚ ਲਿਖੇ ਗਿਆ
ਹਾਂ, ਇਹ ਗੋਰੇ ਬਹੁਤ ਸ਼ੌਂਕ ਰੱਖਦੇ ਆ ਤੇ ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਡਾਕਟਰ ਜੋਗੀਸ਼ਵਰ ਸਿੰਘ ਨੇ ਫੋਨ ਤੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਸੀ ਵੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਸਾਡੀ ਵਿਰਾਸਤ ਬਹੁਤ ਵੱਡੀ ਆ if you look at that period of the Missile period and then I mean there were Hari Singh Nalwe ਵਰਗੇ they are world renowned generals. Ranjit Singh has been voted as the greatest leader in human history, above Winston Churchill. Why aren't we making more films about him? Small episodes of his life. ਆਪਾਂ ਸਿੰਘ ਸਭਾ ਲਹਿਰ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਕੀਤੀ ਸੀਗੀ. The Singh Sabha Lehar was a phenomenal movement, transformative. ਗਦਰੀ ਲਹਿਰ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਨੇ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਗੁਰੂਆਂ ਦੀ ਇਨਸਪੀਰੇਸ਼ਨ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਬਾਅਦ ਚਲੋ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਜ਼ਮ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਹੋ ਗਈ ਸੀ ਪਰ ਇੰਨੀ ਕਮਾਲ ਦੀਆਂ ਲਹਿਰਾਂ ਸੀਗੀਆਂ ਕਿ ਆਪਾਂ ਇਹ ਕਿਉਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਦੱਸਦੇ ਤੇ ਕਈ ਵਾਰੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਨਾ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਯੰਗ ਸਿੱਖ ਫਿਲਮ ਮੇਕਰਸ ਆ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਡਰਾ ਦਿੰਦੇ ਆ
ਬਿਲਕੁਲ ਜੀ
ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਜੇ ਤੂੰ ਇਧਰ ਨੂੰ ਤਾਂ ਬੇਅਦਬੀ
ਦੇਣ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ
ਅਸੀਂ ਬੇਅਦਬੀ ਕਹਿ ਕੇ ਤਾਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਇੱਕ ਦੂਜੇ ਨੂੰ ਕੈਨਸਲ ਕਰਨਾ ਪਿਆ ਲੈਟਸ ਨਾਟ ਬੀ ਇਨ ਦ ਕੈਨਸਲ ਕਲਚਰ ਇੱਕ ਦੂਜੇ ਦਾ ਸਾਥ ਦਈਏ ਤਾਂ ਜੇ ਕੋਈ ਗਲਤ ਕਰਦਾ ਤਾਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਆਬਜੈਕਟਿਵਲੀ ਸਾਇੰਟੀਫਿਕਲੀ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਰਿਸਰਚ ਬੇਸ ਤੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਦੱਸੋ ਉਹ ਤਾਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਰਿਸਰਚ ਚਾਹੀਦੀ ਹੈ let's work together on this. Let's not ਜਿੰਨਾ ਅਸੀਂ ਪ੍ਰੋਟੈਸਟਾਂ ਤੇ ਜ਼ੋਰ ਲਾਉਂਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਆਪਾਂ ਇੱਕ ਦੂਜੇ ਨਾਲ ਸਾਂਝ ਬਣਾਈਏ ਤਾਂ ਮੇਰਾ ਖਿਆਲ ਅਸੀਂ ਕਿਤੇ ਨਾ ਕਿਤੇ ਪਹੁੰਚ ਸਕਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਸੋ ਮੇਰਾ ਖਿਆਲ we just touched on it today so ਬੜੀ ਖੁਸ਼ੀ ਹੋਈ ਆ ਨੌਜਵਾਨ ਸਾਡੇ ਆਏ ਆ ਅਸੀਂ ਆਪਾਂ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਫਿਰ ਵੀ ਲਿਆਉਂਗੇ ਹੋਰ ਵੀ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸਾਥੀਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਲਿਆਉਂਗੇ ਤੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਵੀ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਬ੍ਰੌਡਕਾਸਟਿੰਗ ਚੈਨਲ ਨੂੰ ਸਪੋਰਟ ਕਰੋ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਜੀ
ਬਿਲਕੁਲ ਜੀ ਕਰੋ
ਸਾਡਾ ਦਾਵਾ ਤਾਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗਾ ਵੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਸਭ ਤੋਂ ਵਧੀਆ ਆ ਨਹੀਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਸਾਰੇ ਹੀ ਸੇਵਾ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ
ਬਿਲਕੁਲ
ਪਰ ਜੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸੋਚਦੇ ਆ ਵੀ ਜੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸੋਚਦੇ ਹੋ ਮੀਡੀਆ ਤੋਂ ਗੁਜ਼ਾਰਾ ਹੋ ਜਾਊਗਾ ਤਾਂ ਠੀਕ ਆ ਪਰ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਜੇ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਕੋਲ ਮੀਡੀਆ ਹੈ ਨਹੀਂ ਤਾਂ ਕੁਝ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਕੋਲ ਅੱਜ ਕੱਲ ਸੋ ਖਾਲਿਸਤਾਨ ਤਾਂ ਇੱਕ ਪਾਸੇ ਹੀ ਆ ਤਾਂ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਤਾਂ ਆਪਣਾ ਹੋਂਦ ਹੀ ਖਤਮ ਹੋ ਜਾਣੀ ਹੈ ਬਾਹਰ ਬੈਠਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਵੀ So let's get involved and let's encourage these people and support the channel.
ਬਿਲਕੁਲ ਜੀ ਸਪੋਰਟ ਕਰੋ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਹਾਂਜੀ
ਬੋਲ ਦੇ ਅੰਦਰ ਪੁੱਜ ਮਾਫ ਕਰੋ ਅਸੀਂ ਅਗਲੇ ਹਫਤੇ ਫੇਰ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਮਿਲਾਂਗੇ ਫਤਿਹ ਬੁਲਾਓ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ